I'm Rydda Sattky. I'm the Executive Director of the Geneva Learning Foundation. Very pleased and honored to be here. I want to recognize and appreciate the invitation from our partner. We're proud to have the Indian Society for Adult Immunization amongst the Geneva Learning Foundation's leading partners. Now, I'm here to talk about the new ways to learn and lead HPV vaccination, and this is really sharing a sort of work in progress in terms of what we've been learning at the Foundation, working with tens of thousands of health professionals from all over the world. Now, we entered the field of immunization in June 2016 with a first pilot that then led to developing literally dozens of courses and cohorts with the World Health Organization. In January in 2019, when we did the first impact evaluation, one of the key findings was that these are more than just courses. They're interventions designed to foster and improve practice at every level. And this was, we believe, because we focused on peer learning, how practitioners could learn from each other and support each other in order to develop not just their skills, but also their networks and other capabilities that are much needed in an increasingly complex world. So we saw an opportunity for transformation, to connect peers, to link local practice to global guidance, to recognize and honor what health workers know because they are there every day, especially for those who work at the community level, and to tailor to local context and communities. This led to fleshing out, developing the Geneva Learning Foundation's model, really focusing on the continuum of action from knowledge acquisition to impact. We know that acquiring knowledge is necessary but insufficient to lead to change. In January 2020, we reviewed the data from the performance of learners in two groups. One group had used TGLF's model to its conclusion, and the other had not. And we saw a startling difference in terms of the actual results and the performance of the group that used the TGLF model. Then came Immunization Agenda 2030. And this was following its adoption unanimously at the World Health Assembly. This is the World Strategy for Achieving the Immunization Goals. And SP4, Strategic Priority 4 and Life Course of Integration, spells out the goal for adult vaccination. All people benefit from recommended immunizations throughout the life course, effectively integrated with other health services. So this led us on the 7th of March 2022 to launch the Movement for Immunization Agenda 2030 in response to the call from the Director General of WHO for such a movement. The groundswell of support for immunization was what he called for, and we saw a specific role for health professionals in this movement, in this groundswell. This followed the inaugural lecture by WHO and UNICEF about Immunization Agenda 2030, which we hosted with thousands of health workers from all over the world in attendance. Then we launched the activities for the first 4 months, the first full learning cycle of this movement, and we saw a remarkable progress, engagement, outcomes with more than 16,000 health workers participating, starting with an initial group of 6,185 that registered in less than 2 weeks. And this group, these cohorts work through the crowdsourcing of ideas, the situation analysis of local challenges, action planning, and then actually implementing these actions. This, of course, is part of Geneva Learning Foundation model's theory of change. Not going to get into it here, but happy to engage with anyone who would like to learn more about how to use this model, which is designed to be open source and adaptable to local contexts wherever they may be. Now, in India, there is, and I'm proud to share a picture from Dr. Satabdi Mitra at work, and she is one of the leaders who joined this global movement and really contributed to its progress. In India, there are more than 1,800 scholars, alumni of the Geneva Learning Foundation, representing all levels of the health system, all job categories. And last January, we actually had the pleasure of hosting the first Scholars of India dinner in New Delhi. This is a very diverse, cross-cutting network, bringing together people who might otherwise never meet from different regions, from different organizations, from different system levels. So that's my preamble to just situate the context of our work and this movement for Immunization Agenda 2030. Now, the problem I want to address today, and I'm going to describe what we've been doing at the Geneva Learning Foundation with what result, is the following. Evidence suggests that challenges in implementing and sustaining HPV vaccination in developing countries are significantly influenced by gaps between planning at national level and execution at local levels. Now, in the face of a problem like this, the conventional approach is the one that's shown in the gray column, the expert committee model. So convening a small group of high-level experts and then really focusing, using that expertise, pooling that expertise together to come up with recommendations, to come up with guidelines, to do after having performed reviews, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to present to you is in many ways radically different, but also absolutely complementary to the prevailing model. And that is the peer learning network model. And whether or not this is completely new to you or not, I'm going to try to explain it in such a way that it will hopefully make sense. And we describe a peer learning cycle that proceeds through 5 steps. So step 1 is the collection of experiences at scale. And so for HPV vaccination at the Geneva Learning Foundation, we did this in June 2023. This was the first large-scale collection of HPV vaccination experiences, more than 16,000 health professionals engaged. And it's focused on frontline implementation, so local implementation challenges and solutions. And as you can imagine, we collected a rich diversity of contexts and approaches. Now, this happened at something we called Teach to Reach, and that was the 8th edition of Teach to Reach. So I have to make a stop here and explain what exactly is this Teach to Reach. Teach to Reach is ongoing learning and networking for health professionals. It's really connecting health workers, health professionals from all countries and job roles, from local communities to national planners, with participants from both government and civil society organization. Now, what we've seen is something remarkable. We've seen steady growth in this Teach to Reach community, and we've seen participation from government and civil society. It's about 50-50. And then many, if not most, of the participants work in fragile contexts, whether that's remote rural areas, supporting the needs of nomadic migrant populations, working with refugees or IDPs, or facing armed conflict. So this is, we see Teach to Reach as a platform, network, and community where health professionals can meet, network, and learn. Now, at Teach to Reach 8, we focused on HPV vaccination as one of 3 key areas, and there we collected experiences before, during, and after. I'll come back to that. And then participants really shared strategies for addressing hesitancy, engaging stakeholders, implementing successful programs. So what did we learn from this initial engagement? Initial collection of experiences revealed widespread vaccine confidence challenges. Now, there's also 5 other points I want to highlight, as school-based delivery emerged as a predominant strategy. Community leaders, religious figures undeniably play crucial roles. A personal example, such as vaccinating your own children, proves powerful. And then integration with other health services also showed promise. So communication strategies need to be tailored locally. So that was just step 1. Now, step 2 was taking that collection of experiences and reviewing it, identifying the key themes, identifying the success patterns and the common challenges, the local innovations and adaptations, and then the practical solutions, just categorizing them, what works and how. And this is part of the Teach to Reach step-by-step process that includes this review and analysis in order to generate and codify or package insights. And you can see here an excerpt from the HPV at Teach to Reach thematic summary. And I've highlighted the page from that includes one experience shared by K. Uma Shankar, a public health specialist from a global health country office, so not working at the local levels, working at the regional level, but that was one experience that was shared during Teach to Reach 8 from India. So that was Teach to Reach 8. That leads us to step 3, which we call knowledge deepening. So in October 2023, we went through a second round of experience sharing, and there we got more detailed case studies, implementation stories, additional contexts and approaches, and then we're basically assembling a kind of body of knowledge, but knowledge that is distinct from expert knowledge, expert technical knowledge, because it is experiential knowledge. And I'll come back to that distinction. So this was Teach to Reach 9, and under the banner of the Movement for Immunization agenda, here we have a quote from Dr. Kate O'Brien and Ephraim T. Lamango from WHO and UNICEF, respectively, who lead immunization at the global level. Uniquely, Teach to Reach provides a way to link health professionals together so that they can share experiences about what works. And indeed, when we analyzed and measured what participation in Teach to Reach actually does, we found a 45% stronger change in worldview, 49% higher professional influence, and 41% greater impact on professional practice than those who do not participate in Teach to Reach. So Teach to Reach, again, is a sequence. It is not only a sort of one-day event or a conference. Before Teach to Reach is actually the most critical knowledge generation process, because this is where we call for health professionals to share, to respond to what we call Teach to Reach questions, and to share their experiences. And detailed, specific experiences, not generalities or opinions, but really something I did, something I actually carried out with others, and I'm able to describe it in a very significant ways. And so we ask these Teach to Reach questions, of course, about HPV vaccination. During Teach to Reach, it's about making a powerful emotional connection when you have health professionals from all over the world who are connected to each other simultaneously. There's a very powerful moment. It's also very short, so we hear relatively few experiences compared to what we collect. After Teach to Reach, then, we collect more of the learning and reflection, and more of the reflective learning. So you heard, or you've been exposed to all these experiences. What do you do with them? And then we use something called the Knowledge to Action Hub to actually help apply these new ideas. Now, since Teach to Reach 10, we've also offered organizations the opportunity to become Teach to Reach partners, we see a number of benefits for organization, which the first of which is really accessing all these insights, all these experiences, and being able to contribute to them. So Teach to Reach 9, built on previous discussions, included contributions about practical implementation challenges and solutions, and then we had more depth. We highlighted also successes. People came back and said, well, I said this is Teach to Reach 8, and now I've actually done it, and here's how it's turned out. So what we learned at Teach to Reach 9 is really interesting for us, is that the focus shifted from hesitancy, which is kind of what everyone says. Everyone agrees it's just a prevailing assumption that hesitancy is the problem. And we've shifted from that to more structural solutions with more detailed implementation experiences, deeper understanding of the school community partnerships, recognition of gender and cultural sensitivity needs, the importance of sustained engagement versus one-time events, and also the value of building on existing community structures. That led us to step 4, which is the national level review. So you know that the way the immunization system is organized, decisions, plans, budgets are made at the national level. In most countries, there may be more decentralized or structures in some countries. So in January 2024, we invited national EPI planners, so national EPI directors, and HPV vaccination focal points. Within a week, 31 countries had responded positively and came together. The purpose was twofold. One was for the national EPI planners to discover what we had learned and the insights from hundreds of health workers contributing their experiences. And second was for the national EPI planners to connect with each other and also share their experiences and their perspectives. And this is a critical step because it closes the loop on the process in the way that, of course, national planners should know what is happening at the local level, but in many countries, especially larger ones, this is simply impossible. So from the national level, you may have information systems that work better or that work really well or not so well. Whatever the case, you cannot know everything. And so through this process, we're able to distill not only what health professionals in your country know, but also health professionals from other countries that may be at a different point in the HPV vaccination continuum, and therefore may be able to provide insights before or just at the right time. So in January 2024, this grew out of participation because we saw national EPI managers from Burkina Faso and Sierra Leone come to the 2023 Teach to Reach events and say, we are learning from health professionals by attending this. So we broke down this barrier, the perception that Teach to Reach was somehow just for subnational staff. Now, we focused specifically on sharing country-level experience of what works, and then we shared back with the countries detailed reports of what they had shared and done, made sense of, how they had made sense of these inputs from health professionals from all over the world. So what we learned, one is the need for cross-ministry coordination. Education and health primarily was emphasized. resources and funding challenges, of course, policy barriers and enablers, different country contexts requiring distinct approaches. And then really there's a recognition of the value of sharing these implementation experiences across borders. So that leads to step 5, which is really the knowledge mobilization. It's an ongoing process building on that national EPI consultation. And this is why we speak about this notion, this concept of continuous learning. So that synthesis of insights then goes back to frontline workers, but also strengthens the policy practice connection and really is the foundation for continued learning cycles. So that's a description of the process. What did we actually learn? And you can see in this kind of pyramid the different kinds of things that come out of the collective intelligence that we mobilize through this type of peer learning process. And again, I want to emphasize it's distinct from what we do when we bring together, when we convene an expert committee. Now, every expert will have sources of information. Some will have a basis in the field for what they bring, the expertise that they bring to the committee, and so on. But here we are privileging, starting with the most local level where vaccination actually happens, and building on that. So it's interesting to see what we can then learn from that. So first, some key process insights. Each stage that I described, each step, deepened understanding of the implementation challenges. And we went from tactical to more strategic considerations with a growing recognition of systemic factors. So if you're struggling with how do we move beyond the immediate moment now, the campaign for HPV vaccine, to how to sustain the gains that the campaign has made, this type of process actually helped. The evolution from individual to institutional solutions, and then the value of structured knowledge sharing across levels. Now, in terms of implementation learning, that importance of connecting field experience to policy. So success requires multi-stakeholder engagement. And some of you may say, well, I already know all this. But the point is, this is what we're learning from the local levels. So if health professionals at the local level see this, then there's an opportunity really to support that. Sustained communication more effective than campaigns. School systems provide critical implementation platform. Community leadership essential for acceptance. Integration with other services increases efficiency. And then local adaptation is a key to successful implementation. So none of these may surprise you, but these 6 findings we thought were unexpected. There are examples of tribal communities that showed less vaccine hesitancy than population communities in the urban areas. Teachers emerged as more influential than health workers in some contexts, even though health workers are trusted advisors. Personal stories proved more persuasive than statistical evidence. Integration with COVID-19 vaccination improved acceptance for HPV vaccine. Social media played both positive, not only a negative role in disinformation, but also a positive role. And then school-based programs sometimes were organized in ways that helped reach out-of-school children. The next sort of counterintuitive success factors, there's 6, I've got 6 of those as well. Less formal settings often produce better results. Simple communication strategies outperform complex ones. Male community leaders, despite this is about 9 to 14-year-old girls, and there's definitely a role for mothers and other women, but male community leaders became strong vaccination advocates in what was described by health professionals. And this is all empirical. This is based on what health professionals actually did and then shared through this Teach to Reach knowledge development process, through this peer learning process. Religious institutions provided unexpected support. Health worker vaccination of own children became a powerful tool, and community dialogue more effective than expert presentations. Now, there are also some unexpected challenges, and there's 6 of those. Urban areas sometimes showed more resistance than rural areas. Education level did not correlate with vaccine acceptance. Health workers themselves sometimes showed hesitancy. Traditional media turned out to be less influential than anticipated. Formal authorities were not always the most effective advocates, and technical knowledge turned out to be less important than communication skills. 6 examples of novel solutions that surfaced, that emerged through the sharing of experience, using cancer survivors as advocates, WhatsApp groups for community health workers, school children as messengers to families, integration with existing women's groups, leveraging religious texts in teaching, community theater, and storytelling approaches. There are also some system-level surprises. And I've got 6 of those. Success often independent of resource levels. Think about that one. Informal networks more important than formal ones. Bottom-up strategies more effective than top-down. Social factors more influential than technical ones. Local adaptation more important than standardization. And peer influence more powerful than expert authority. So the way we describe this is a kind of collective intelligence. And health workers can provide granular data points and rapid feedback to improve performance. High quality data and situational analysis can provide that as rapid insights. And there's rapid collection of field observations and changing disease patterns, etc. So this is in general what the TGLF Insights Unit does, but I've been talking about its specific application to the context of HPV vaccination. Now, why is this so difficult? For example, with HPV vaccination, why is it such a challenge to share what we're learning and to come to conclusions that can actually be used as guidance? So there, we did 2 studies in 2020 and 2022 of what we call learning culture. This is 7 dimensions that actually drive performance, that have been shown to drive performance. What we found that continuous learning is the Achilles heel in immunization. And so that means the relative lack of learning opportunities, the limited ability to experiment and to take risks, the low tolerance for failure, the focus on task completion at the expense of developing capacity for future performance, and then lack of encouragement for learning tied to tangible organizational incentives. So what that means is that where the assumption may be that poor motivation is a root cause of poor performance, perhaps for HPV vaccination, but or for other activities, what we found is that motivation only weakly correlated with perceived program performance. By contrast, this concept of learning culture correlated more strongly with program performance. So the learning for HPV vaccination and IA 2030 stakeholders is to ensure that learning culture measurement is used to focus the strategies to develop people. And this is particularly relevant when developing strategies for HPV vaccination. The evidence is strong and compelling that if we invest in effective learning, that improves performance. And we see at a very basic level, 6 ways to strengthen continuous learning to drive HPV vaccination. I'm going to formulate these as a health worker. Motivate me to believe strongly in the importance of what I do. Give me practice dealing with difficult situations I might face. Give me practice in being mentally resilient in the face of obstacles. Prompt me to enlist co-workers to support me. Help me enlist my boss to provide guidance, support, and resources. And number 6, help me identify and overcome workplace obstacles. So to sum up, to begin summing up, the impacts and benefits is that everyone gains. It is not an extractive process about extracting data from health workers for the national authorities, because health workers themselves are sharing, are learning from each other, and they gain a broader perspective. National planners are accessing grounded insights, and that helps practical solutions spread more quickly. Policy decisions can be informed more directly by field experience, and then we can set up this continuous learning, continuous improvement cycle. So we see 5 key success factors: scale, structure, rhythm, review, and pathways. And scale enables diverse input collection. If you don't have enough people contributing to Teach to Reach, you're unlikely to get something that can be certainly a kind of self-selected, purposeful sample, but that can still inform us usefully. Structure supports quality knowledge creation. This is not a random process where every health worker just gives their random opinion. This is a structured process that supports quality knowledge creation through organized systems. Rhythm maintains engagement. So the fact that there's a Teach to Reach 8 and then a Teach to Reach 9, that's how you maintain engagement. So that's one of the ways. That's one of the keys. There's multiple of review to ensure relevance, and that includes review by technical experts. And then there's a clear pathway from insights to action. So what we need to know to progress on SP4 life course and integration is the following. 1 is to rethink how we learn. 2 is to question how we engage with families and communities. And 3 is simply to focus on trust. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation today. I'd like to invite you to follow me on social media. You're welcome to do so. I will certainly follow back. Just look for my name. And then you can also follow the Geneva Learning Foundation on social media. Just search for the Geneva Learning Foundation anywhere. And last but not least, if you have poor connectivity, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. You can get all of the live content in audio format, so like listening to the radio, but at your convenience, you download, and it's very low bandwidth compared to, say, our YouTube channel. Once again, thank you for listening. Look forward to your comments and feedback and to the discussion.